Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Let's get back to Iraq. Still a lot of struggling going on involving politics. But this man here in the picture, he is stubborn, he is strong, and he is in the right position. But there are some powerful forces out there, Iran, doing everything they can to disrupt what it is that Saudi's trying to do. Despite the threats, despite the grenade attack, despite them sending the leader of their military over to speak directly to Saudi, he is still standing his ground. He is a person for the people, by the people. So what has been going on since the elections? Well, we had a lot of challenges at the political positions. We had a lot of appeals sent to the court. The courts have been handling them. They have been doing manual counting. All that was done. Decisions were made. And then all of a sudden, the first session of Parliament, once again, Halabasi is nominated as the president. And sure enough, it gets challenged. We had to wait for the courts to roll. The courts have rolled. The first parliamentary session was considered constitutional. Therefore, it continues. This is a good sign. So now that Halabasi has been nominated and has been voted in as the president of parliament, they turn around and they nominated Saleh to go ahead and be the president of Iraq all over again. The problem is this. In Kurdistan, there are two political parties that are really strong. You have the Kurdistan Democratic Party and the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan. Both of them used to be rivals, but they decided this time around they'll unite so they could become a stronger force. No problem until it got to the presidency, when they were supposed to all agree that Saleh would continue and do another term as the presidency, except for a small problem. The Patriotic Union decided to put up a gentleman named Zabari as the candidate. So it's caused a little bit of a rift. What's really going on is this. The Patriotic Union has been bucking for more power and more control over what's going on in Kurdistan, and then they hope to do what they can to take over all of Iraq. So, of course, this is causing a little bit of a rift. So you have what's going on in Kurdistan as well as what's going on in Iraq. You have the Saudiist movement bumping heads with the framework, while the framework has Maliki in there, and they want Maliki as part of this government, except for Saudi's not having any part of it. Not at all. He really doesn't want to deal with a lot of Iranian-backed puppets, but especially Maliki, because Maliki has been involved in some serious corruption when he was prime minister. We have the corruption files. Maliki's trying to keep them from being opened and looked into, where Saudi is wanting to punish all those individuals who were involved in corruption and should have been punished. So you can understand the panic in Maliki. But he does have the support of some parts of the military, as well as a pretty strong political party, the framework, which is the Shiite forces. So far he's being protected. There are outside people trying to influence Saudi's decision. We know that Iran sent their commander of their forces, the Quds forces, over there to talk to Saudi, but got nowhere with him. You heard Saudi. He wants no outside influence in the forming of this government. Not from Iran, not from America, not from anybody. He truly wants a government formed by the people, for the people. Except for the Shiite forces who have been in control since 2003, and a lot of this, they're not too thrilled about this. So there are some rifts between political parties happening, but Saudi is still moving forward. The last we heard, again, the judicial courts were going to go ahead and review a filing that the first session of Parliament was unconstitutional. The courts finally came out and said it is constitutional. The first session counted. Therefore, Halabasi is presidency of the Parliament. They nominated Saleh, and they're going to get their way, as the president of the Republic of Iraq. Then the next step is to go ahead and see what they can do about getting Al-Qadimi in there as the prime minister. Those would be your three presidents. They done very good when they worked together the past year and a half. Al-Qadimi continues to kick butt, even though he's waiting to find out the fate of his political career. So you can see here, the National Union officially names Burham Saleh as a candidate for presidency, and there should be no other candidates, not even Zabari this time. So it looks like Saleh is going to become the president of Iraq, barring any other issues. So we got Halabasi back in there, and it looks like we're going to get Saleh back in there. And the rest of the members will be chosen until you choose the prime minister, then he picks his cabinet. It appears that Sadr's getting his way, one way or the other. He is getting his way. And if he does get his way, that means the same three people that have been running the presidencies will continue to run the presidencies. I can't think of a better person outside of Al-Qademi. This man has been able to deal with a lot of different factions within Iraq and managed to keep them all at peace while he was in power. So he does gain a lot of respect in that fashion. The only issue that Maliki has is that Al-Qademi tried to investigate him once he got in office. So his concern is what? That he will do Sadr's bidding. In other words, open up the corruption files and then go after them finally, which is what Al-Qademi wanted in the first place. So we'll see how much of a fuss is going to kick up when it comes to choose the prime minister. But for now, we know for sure Halabasi controls the parliament. We know that Saleh is being nominated as a president. We'll see how those go, and then we'll focus on Al-Qademi next. But you see, once the courts made a decision, a speech was given by Sadr. It says, a visible speech by Sadr demands to dissolve the factions and end corruption. Right now, you have Iraq's broken up into different factions. Remember when Al-Qademi got in office, he said these different factions can no longer fly their own individual flag. They must fly the country's flag of Iraq and Iraq only. No other flags. And that was done, which I think was a bold step to try to do what you can to continue to push forward in unifying all of Iraq. So Sadr demanded on Monday the dissolution of the armed factions, the fight against corruption, and the surrender of arms to the state. So he doesn't want any more militia people out there armed. So this came in a visual speech the media office of the Sadr's movement broadcasted. On this one here, it says there's a video. Al-Sadr reveals the details of what happened between him and the political forces and his position on the crowd. Since Sadr denied on Monday his intentions to break up the Shiite house, stressing at the same time the incompatibility of the political parties to limit arms to the state and fight corruption. So Sadr said in a video that was sent to the news, the forums that suggest that Sadr is turning against Shiism and against the Shiites is what Sadr seemed to deny, according to the video clip. He added in a previous tweet, I called for the boredom of the Shiite houses and did not receive any answer or interaction from them at all in reference to the Shiite political forces. And I called on them to obey and centralize the region, religious reference to Najaf, and take its orders and decisions. So he continued, we were and are still prioritizing public interests over private interests. And in the current Al-Qademi government, we have relinquished the ministers and categorically refused to have any military for the Sadrist movement. He indicated that he wanted to organize a popular crowd and restore its prestige and reputation because many enemies are trying to tarnish its reputation. So he was talking about after he decided to withdraw from elections before the elections came. He says many political parties insisted that we go back to a run for in the election. So there's a bunch of signed documents of those individuals. He has not leaked who they are yet, but has stated that he's going to. He stressed that civil peace should not be threatened with their statements because civil peace is not a game, neither in my hands nor in their hands, and it is a red line that no one should cross. There's a lot of threats about a possible civil war breaking out. You have the Sadrist movement and his backing, and then you have Maliki's people backed by Iran trying to force their way into the government. So here you have the federal courts resolve the controversy and decides on the legality of the first session of the Iraq parliament. Well, once they lost, what happened? They sat around and tried to get it appealed. But before it even made it that far, it says urgent. The federal court rejects the appeal in the first session of the parliament and confirms its constitutionality. They wouldn't even entertain an appeal. They just flat shut it down. So, of course, Sadr didn't waste any time to let everybody know, now that the decision has fallen in his favor, that they will proceed forming the majority government. And he's also saying that he's opened the doors to everyone as well, as long as their intentions are to restore Iraq to its previous prominence. And as long as you don't try to include Maliki in any of your discussions. That goes on to talk about how some of the people in the Shiite forces were insisting that Sadr allow Maliki into the government, and he's telling them no. You can see Sadr right here. It says, I invited Amiri, Khazali, Fayyad for a government majority that al-Maliki does not participate in, but they refused. So it's not like he's keeping the closed door to these individuals. He's willing to entertain some ideas and thoughts as long as Maliki's name is not involved, period. So as you can see in this article right here, there are a lot of different political blocs. They unite. They create a whole new type of political bloc and give it a nifty name. But anyways, it says in here, the media was told that the Sunni political forces from the alliance of Resolved and Progress, the People's Party and independence representatives of the Sunni component, formed a great alliance led by the leader of the Arab Project, which is Kanjar. And she indicated that the coalition consists of 67 deputies in the Iraq parliament, and it bears the name of sovereignty. So groups are still being formed. This is what you need. You need alliances whenever you're trying to get anything accomplished within government. It says here, Sadr and Barzani discussed political developments and unifying the national ranks. The news said that Sadr and the head of the Kurdistan Democratic Party, Barzani, discussed on Tuesday political developments and national unification. He's talking about with Kurdistan. In a statement received by the news from Sadr's office, said that Sadr had received the phone call from Barzani. He added that during the call, the most important issues related to political developments in Iraq and the need to unify the nation ranks at the center stage were discussed to serve the interests of the Iraqi people. See, Sadr saying all the right thing. He is a nationalist. Everything has to be about doing what they can to benefit the Iraqi people. So as you can imagine, there is a lot of resentment in the way that Sadr is aligning himself with certain groups. This is causing a political strife. This could lead to civil war. You're already having people doing what I would consider acts of war. Said the attack on the headquarters of the Speaker of Parliament in Anbar is a terrorist act and targets constitutional benefit. Saleh said in a tweet, the attack on the headquarters of the Speaker of Parliament in Anbar, which resulted in injury of civilians, is a reprehensible terrorist act, and its timing targets national and constitutional entitlements. We must unite the nation's ranks and unite to protect civil peace and prevent stalkers and to continue the path towards forming an Iraq government that protects the higher interests of the country and responds to the aspirations of our people. So again, Sadr saying all the right things, Halabasi saying all the right things, the president of Iraq saying all the right things. But they are being met with some resistance. I know there's some talk out there still about the Iraq exchange rate. I've seen the articles, I know it's being discussed. But as I said before, even if they do change it, it's just going to change back to the previous rate. You're not going to see any huge RI or RV, not yet. Most likely, it'll go from getting 1,450 dinars for every $1 to back to where it was before, 1,190 dinars. That's going in the right direction. The lower that number gets, the more we benefit. But just be patient. I know some of you have been out there, been waiting for a long time. I get it. But nobody could deny that Iraq is not moving in the right direction. A lot of things are happening and still continue to happen. What we don't want to see is a civil unrest, protesters. You don't want to see a civil war break out. Hopefully calmer heads will prevail, and Iran will keep their nose out of Iraq's business, and Iraq can return back to a peaceful nation with prosperity for all of its people. Anyways, that's it for now, you guys. Hit the thumbs up button. If you are not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. That's it for now. I'm out.